So Dave the Butterfly Guy here, back in the month of August to give you an update on how my butterfly garden has progressed over the summer. And I thought I'd start right at the front of the garden and show you my petunias. So again, petunias I planted early in the season. I keep pulling off the dead petals, they rebloom, and you can see they create all kinds of great color. Even though I don't see lots of butterflies on these petunias, they do create a lot of color for the entry of my garden. I do have a number of milkweed plants that have grown just naturally in this part of my garden. I've picked off some monarch caterpillars off them and helped them grow and turn into beautiful monarch butterflies. And then some of the other plants I planted these alyssums, which create great ground cover, and over the month of June and July they were great, but some of the heat at the end of July and August, they kind of stopped blooming. There's a chance they might rebloom as it gets a little cooler in the summer, but for right now they're a little bit dormant. Then lastly, I planted this phlox plant, and the phlox plant bloomed later in July, the last couple weeks, and it'll create nice color the rest of the year. And what I love about phlox, it'll grow back. It's a perennial, and next year it'll be my second year with this plant, and we've seen butterflies land on it over the course of the last couple weeks. So on this side of the entry to my butterfly garden, I start out with the hyssopes, and the hyssopes have been blooming all summer. They've created all kinds of bee activity especially, and there's some bees active this morning and have really enjoyed the hyssop. My butterfly weed, which has been really a nice blossoming orange, adds this vibrant color. It is a host plant, part of the milkweed family, so I really recommend you putting that in your butterfly garden. So again, this is the, I think, third year I've had this plant bloom and come back, and it gets bigger and better each year. And then lastly, I have my cosmos, and the cosmos have been blossoming all summer, but again, some of the heat the last few weeks have had them dry up a bit. I'll still get a little more activity throughout the rest of the summer, but I think their summer's coming to an end. All right, let's walk into the garden. The month of August is a fabulous month because that's when the butterflies really start to show up at the garden. With all the flowers that are in bloom, it creates all this activity. So we'll come into the garden. I've planted these zinnias on this side of the garden. They're just starting to bloom. The first plant has bloomed. The next few are still a week or so away. I've got some other zinnias that are starting to bloom. You can see they get pretty tall. They're about 3 feet tall, create some beautiful colors. We'll come in. Hopefully we'll see some butterflies today. I also wanted to share with you this dill plant. So if you can remember this dill plant, it's a host plant for swallowtails, and that's why I planted it this year. I planted it, it was just 6 inches tall, it's very short. It's up to 4 feet tall. I've had to kind of main it in because it's gotten so large and just grown everywhere, and it's been this big, huge flower. I'm not sure if it's helped me attract swallowtails, but it's really an impressive plant. Well, and sure enough, as I talk about the dill plant and trying to attract swallowtails, right behind it's the Eastern Tiger Swallowtail. Again, that magnificent butterfly. So I'm really excited to have that in the garden this year. And I'm not sure if the dill's attracted it. It certainly seems to love the purple cone flowers.
A crazy day in the butterfly garden. Look what showed up. It's a giant swallowtail, the largest swallowtail in North America, the largest butterfly in North America. Unbelievable it showed up here on our film day. So it's really exciting to have not only the Eastern Tiger Swallowtail in the garden, but also the Giant Swallowtail. The Giant Swallowtail looks like it's always a bit spastic. It's always flapping its wings at a really accelerated speed.
This is the main part of my butterfly garden. This is where a lot of the butterfly action happens, driven by the purple cone flowers that are getting a lot of activity this morning. I also have the liatris, and I think the liatris is a really cool flower. It starts to bloom at the top of the flower, and then over the next few weeks it kind of blooms as it moves down the stem. And so I've seen all kinds of monarch activity around my liatris this summer. So in here I've got the brown-eyed Susan. You're probably familiar with brown-eyed Susan, black-eyed Susan. Again, I read early on that was a great pollinating plant to have in a butterfly garden. And it's in full bloom right now. It looks pretty. It adds some yellow to all the purple I have in my garden. But I don't see a lot of activity on these. I don't see a lot of bees or butterflies working their way to those brown-eyed or black-eyed Susans. So I'm not a huge fan other than to have the color that breaks up all my purples. So I've got 6 different sedums I've planted in my garden. Sedums blossom, bloom really late in the summer. I've got one here. I've struggled a little bit with all the deer activity. They seem to really enjoy sedums, but this plant has come through pretty good. I'm still not quite ready to bloom and blossom, so it's a couple weeks away, but then that'll give me some nice different colors as I get into late August and into September and October. I also have another phlox plant. I actually forgot I had planted that a year ago, and it's come back nicely and started to blossom. And then behind that, I've got a mix of some tickweed, and I've got some blanket flowers. Again, I don't see a lot of activity. Those have just kind of blown in wild, so I didn't plant those. And so, but it does add a little extra color to the garden. You can see I set up a little contraption here, and I'll show you in a minute a couple pictures of how I used it. But I basically took some monarch caterpillars that were eating my milkweed earlier in the season, and I brought them inside and fed them milkweed. They turned into chrysalises. Then I brought them back out here and I hung them on this twine and let them turn into butterflies. And so this is where I sit out, and then I'll just sit here and watch that transformation from chrysalis to butterfly, which is really spectacular. I'm going to show that to you in an upcoming video.
Here's a look at the chrysalis the day they're going to turn into a butterfly. I have them hanging from the twine, and then later that afternoon they turned into these majestic monarch butterflies.
I've also got a lot of milkweed in this part of my garden. I had all kinds of caterpillar activity. I've also got it mixed in with a couple of zinnias that create a lot of pollen this time of year. But I wanted to show you something spectacular on this milkweed plant down here. So milkweed, told you how monarchs love milkweed and the caterpillars will eat the milkweed. Well, they're not the only ones that like milkweed. There's a moth called the milkweed tiger moth, and they lay multiple eggs on milkweed, and then they eat the milkweed. And here's a close-up of some of the leaves and how they'll just harvest every single piece of the milkweed off the leaf. And that's because there's multiple of these moth tiger milkweed caterpillars. They'll just take over the whole plant and they'll devour the whole plant. So the challenge is the milkweed tiger moth and the monarch, they don't play well together. The tiger moths will just take over the milkweed plant and doesn't leave any room for the monarch caterpillars. So sometimes you have to make a choice of which one you want, and monarchs frequently win if people are involved because we love the majesty and the beauty of the monarch butterfly. But the tiger moth has its place also, so if you have enough milkweed, maybe there's some opportunity for both to survive. So over on this back side of my garden, I planted a row of zinnias, and again, I love zinnias because they flower in August and then they'll stay in bloom right through September and August. Again, they grow 2-3 feet tall. You can see they're starting to bloom. Each of these individual flowers will branch out and create more and more blossoms. So it'll be an area that the butterflies will really enjoy across the months of August and September and into October. So the last thing I wanted to share with you was, how's my sunflower seeds doing? I planted 7 across the back row. I've lost 6 to the deer. I've tried to work hard to keep this one going. I was gone for 3 days. I came back, the top of it was bit off by deer, but it's starting to, the leaves are coming back, and I'm thinking it'll still grow. It's only about 2 feet tall. This sunflower seed grows to 15 feet tall, so I'm not sure if it'll get there. I'm gonna try and nurse it along the rest of the summer and see if I can get a sunflower out of it. So August is the best month of the year for the butterflies. There's all kinds of activities as they're laying their last eggs for the monarch, turning into caterpillars so they can start their great migration at the end of the fall here. So that's all I have. Enjoy the month of August. Enjoy your butterfly gardens. It's Dave the Butterfly Guy signing out. Have a great day.